It was all about the rains last week right here in Lagos, and I dare say across the country. Well, sometimes the rains are blessings, but it just didn't feel like it was a blessing last week because it brought with it floods and, of course, caused loads and loads of pains for a lot of persons right here in Lagos and, of course, across some other cities right here in Nigeria. Social media was agog, with loads and loads of messages. And of course, for those of us who live on the island, we were the butt of jokes, you could say, because people, putting up messages like send a message to HR and tell them you're not coming to work, trying to make fun a bit of the not so very funny situation. Well, floods in Lagos will get us talking on the show today as I bid you welcome to another bumper package of The Newsroom. The Newsroom is a production of Nigeria Info's Newsroom, where we take a critical look at some of the big stories that have made the rounds in the course of the last 7 days or thereabouts. My name is Ufuoma Egbamuno. It's a pleasure to be here once again and not be stopped by Euro 2024, which, by the way, comes to an end this week. Guys, you can watch the show on our Facebook handle and on YouTube. Facebook is Nigeria Info 993. YouTube is Nigeria Info FM. And of course, thanks to my producers, Emmanuel Onwoka and Precious Nena Okon, who have done a fantastic job, you would see today. I'll be having a guest in a bit as we'll talk about the challenges, that has come as a result of these persistent flood issues. Well, the Lagos State government, did apologize a couple of days ago to residents for the inconveniences that it has caused. And of course, we also saw one of the commissioners, Tukumbo Wahab, yesterday in a statement talking about how some of the structures that have been removed needed to be removed because the floods would have been a little worse than it actually is right now if all of those things were not done. We'll talk about all of that on the show today. But quickly, let's take a quick look at some of the big stories that have made the rounds in the course of the last 7 days. Well, the federal government told us that it paid a total of $850 million debt that's owed to European airlines. And they also, revoked road contracts totaling $870 billion that was awarded to 3 companies. And the reason is because of the non-performance of those companies. We were also told that the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited declared a state of emergency, one of the stories we brought to you last week on the production of Nigeria's oil and gas industry. And of course, organized labor and private sector protested the hike in electricity tariff by the electricity distribution company. And the PDP primaries held in Edo State, where we saw a court last week declare it as invalid, as Federal High Court in Abuja. And of course, one of the big stories, which I'm going to dwell on for a few minutes, was, of course, the general elections in the UK, where the Tories, the Conservatives, they lost their 14-year hold on power as a result of that election. And of course, the Labour Party got into power and we have a new Prime Minister in the UK. Rishi Sunak, gone. Yeah, he's gone. And of course, it just reminded me, watching all of the coverage reminded me of the elections that took place right here in Nigeria in February and March 2023. Now, guess what? Just a week before, that's 2 weeks ago, I was actually at a conference by the Center for Media and Studies that took place in Abuja, where what we were discussing at that conference for 2 days was all about election coverage, 2023 elections, lessons from it, and what we need to do going forward. And of course, that conference had a sitting INEC rec, that's Resident Electoral Commissioner, and also an ex-INEC National Commissioner. And of course, journalists from across the country, including, of course, civil society. It was a packed conference. And trust me, my takeaway from that conference, putting it side by side, with some of the off-the-records conversations I had with a few persons, plus what I saw last week in the UK general election, just tells me something I've always believed, that what we had last year was a sham. And there are no two ways to explain that. It was a sham and it was no election. Of course, results are out. We have a sitting president. But the hopes of many Nigerians was raised unnecessarily because, of course, INEC has succeeded in the Ekiti, Edo, and Osun elections in showing the whole of Nigeria how things can be done. Unfortunately, months later, they just did not live up to the billing. And for me, the lesson from last week's UK's general election, as well as, of course, the election we had in France over the weekend, is until the average Nigerian citizen is able to decide who governs them, we most likely may never have good governance. Unfortunately, we didn't hear about glitches. Yeah, that's the famous word. We never heard about glitches last week. By 10 p.m. or thereabouts, when the election closed, we could see a projection. We knew already, okay, these votes will go this way, those votes will go this way. It was just a question of, okay, given the final results. And you will think that that's how a sane society should be. That's how we all expected INEC, the kind of things we expected INEC to give us last year. Unfortunately, we're where we are. That's not the subject of the conversation. I just had to chip that in, on the show today, and I'm repeating it. Until we have a situation where we have free and fair elections, trust me, elections have issues everywhere in the world. But at least let there be some semblance of sanity where if this happens, this is what happens. Anyway, let's talk flood, people, because of course it was not so great last week right here in Nigeria across several states, from Adamawa, Akwa Ibom, Anambra to Delta, Ebonyi, Edo, Plateau, Rivers, Sokoto, Taraba. So many states, including Lagos, had that effect, because it did feel like that rain was all across the country. Almost everybody I spoke to in different parts of Nigeria, it was raining. And to a large extent, it wasn't the cholera outbreak that was already bedeviling the country, to the point where, of course, some persons, their goods and properties were floating. Some cars, we saw them floating. And some people lost their homes, people lost their goods and services. My producer right here is trying as much as possible to reach out to our guest on the show today, who is an environmentalist, because that we really want to dig into that conversation about floods in Lagos, and how more or less we can find solutions to them. We'll get to, of course, the comments from the Lagos State government official, but it does look like we are struggling, to reach our guest. Maybe I'll wait for another 1 or 2 minutes. If that's not possible for us to do, I'll probably just go to the phone lines and get to hear from you, Lagos, on what it felt like and what it was like, during the rains last week. It's so bad that it even affected petrol supply. That's part of the news this morning. The association of what are they called again? Apologies, the name skips my memory right now. The the major marketers, yes, came out with the explanation that as a result of that rainfall last week, Nimet had already, is it Nimet or Nimet, whatever, they had already warned that there should be less loading of petrol, because as a result of the thunderstorm and the rain, so that it doesn't, petrol is very it's very you can get fire from it, so they had warned that there should be less of shipping of and loading of petrol to avoid issues. And to a large extent, unfortunately, that has resulted in the queues you see around Lagos and some other cities. It does look like we've finally gotten our guest. Our guest is an environmentalist. He's also a presenter right here on Nigeria Info. We've got Mr. Desmond Majekodunmi on the show this evening. A very good evening to you, sir. Hello. Okay, it does look like we don't. If you're watching this show on YouTube or on Facebook, you can definitely see some of the havoc. You can see some of the havoc that the rains last week caused in various parts of Lagos. Go check out our YouTube right now, Nigeria Info FM, as well as Facebook, Nigeria Info 993. We're streaming live, and you can see pictures of the destruction, that it caused. Some might also argue that maybe we as Lagos residents are also partly the problem. Clogged drainages. Yes, there's the other school of thought that would say, well, government should be responsible, in making sure drainages are not clogged. But at the same time, how about your sachet water that you buy and drink and just throw anywhere? How about the packet of biscuits you eat in the bus and just throw it out? Not even in the trash can that supposedly should be in the bus, but we never see it. All of these things, including, of course, climate change, we know are some of the reasons, why we have some of these flooding. But Lagos, I would love to hear from you for the next couple of minutes. What was it like? What was it like actually last week? Nimet has also predicted that today, tomorrow, and Wednesday there's going to be rainfall. Thankfully, I think in this part of Lagos where I am, Victoria Island, it just showered. It's really not rained that much. I don't know what it's like in your area. Has it rained consistently today? Has it been heavy rains? Because of course the weather forecast is that we would have lots of rains today, tomorrow, Tuesday, and Wednesday. What was it like last week when we had all of these rains and the floods? We would love to hear from you. 0201 277 0993. 0201 2771 993, 0201 2772 993, and 0201 2773 993. Those are the numbers with which you can reach us on the show this evening. What was the flood like in your area? Let's get to, even as we see pictures of the destruction all across Lagos. Not so great. Hello, good evening. Welcome to the newsroom. Mane's village people from Asaba have come. Hello, good evening. Welcome to the newsroom.
Good evening to you, ma.
Good evening, sir.
I'm listening to your conversation. Are you discussing politics or you are discussing raining?
I'm discussing flooding. I just added that bit of commentary.
It's like no, it's like you are jumping. You are jumping the conversation because you was talking about how some country doing politics and so others. Now you are jumping to another thing. Sorry, that is what I want to confirm.
Okay, just to make it clear, part of what we do on the newsroom is to reel through some of the big stories that have made the rounds, and of course, one of the big stories that made the rounds last week was the UK election, and I just talked about it a little bit. It does look like we've got our guest finally. Very good evening to you, Mr. Desmond. Welcome to the newsroom.
Good evening to you.
Good evening. The internet, or rather our phone lines have been a bit problematic. So let's talk quickly because we do not have so much time. We saw the environmental issues, with the floods and rains from last week. How serious is this issue? Let's start from there.
Well, it's a loud warning, and you did allude to something very, very pertinent and very relevant. Because you said that the current commissioner has been very busy removing structures that had caused this flood. But the big question that must be asked is, why were those structures there in the first place?
Very important.
When we know, because we know what the Lagos terrain is like, a low-lying place that's surrounded with water everywhere, the ocean on one side, lagoons on another side, mangrove on another side, and this relentless, not just the structures, but the sand filling, relentless sand filling, just all over the place, and it is actually disturbing nature's way of easing heavy rains out, because heavy rains will always come.
True.
And especially now that we've got the climate change. And what did we do over the years and years? We just kept on sand filling unbridled. There were, I believe, some kind of master plans where people had assessed, okay, this area, you shouldn't sand fill there, but this area, if you do, you develop it, make sure that there is, leave some of the natural drains. And if you can't do that, then make sure you have the real type of correct drains that will allow the water to flow to the lagoon. And, the classic example is the Lekki area, which I have been coming to for the last almost over 35 years, since before the expressway was put there. And all these areas, Morocco, Lekki Phase 1, all those were mangrove, was swamp, was what they call poto-poto. Do you use that word poto-poto yourself? Poto-poto?
Yeah, back in the day.
So they just went and sand filled all this poto-poto without putting the right type of structures in place that would allow nature to do her thing, which she has been doing for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. And that's easing the heavy rainwater back into the lagoon, and then lagoon takes it to the ocean, and then the ocean releases it up into the atmosphere as water vapor, then it falls as rain, the cycle. But we went and broke that cycle. So yes, it's very, very worrying, particularly because we know for sure, we know far heavier rains will be coming. Maybe this year, there are predictions that it could be heavy this year, but over the next few years, the next 5, 10, 15, even up to the next 30, 40 years, because of the global warming that we have caused. That is, we human beings, the international community, and to us to an extent, have caused this global warming. And that makes more heating of the water bodies. And when you heat water, you have evaporation. And when you have evaporation, you have rain. So we're going to be having what they call now rain bombs. And we need to be ready. What is a worrying situation?
Quite exhausting listening to that. So we've seen the response, from the Lagos state government. To a large extent, I would think that for now, at least, it's not as worse as it was sometime last year. But as citizens, as Lagosians, listening to you right now, what should we do on our own part?
Yes, the things that we have to do is just, obey the instructions. And, thank God we do have a very proactive group of people in government, at least in these particular areas, with the Environment Ministry, the Health Ministry, the Agri, several other ministries that they're really going all out to do the right thing. So we, as the people, we need to cooperate and make sure that we don't be throwing our rubbish in the drains. And also, it's a reminder that there are some basic realities of life. Basic realities. What you sow is what you reap. And I've known this for a long time. I'm a farmer, and I've been farming for 40 years. And believe you me, I've never been able to harvest cocoyam when I plant cassava.
True that.
And it's there in the scripture as well. It's very, very clear. There's no ambiguity. God is not mocked. What you sow, what you reap. And we're sowing very, very bad things by throwing rubbish onto the street, putting rubbish in the drains so the drains get blocked. No, we have to wake up to that reality, because consequences are real. They are real, and they come back to us. And this, of course, applies also to the people in government, the ones who are making the big decisions. They better make sure that they do the right thing for the large group of people that their decisions can affect. And luckily, as I said, we're seeing some right things now. Our honorable, as they call him, honorable commissioner, they call him a bulldozer Wahab. Because if you have your building in the wrong place,
we have to give kudos to him to a large extent, because as much as it is painful and hurtful, for persons who have been on the receiving end, the initial question would be, why in the first place would you build, in a place that ideally you should not have? And that question goes both ways. It also goes to the state government officials who give out permits, and all of the what's it called, to these persons to build these houses.
Yes. It's wrong. So he's actually, fighting a good fight, because I'm sure he's getting opposition left, right, and center. But obviously, Mr. Governor is backing him, and they're doing the right thing. But they need to do a lot more. And all those people that gave permits for them to be building in the wrong places, they should know that the consequences must come upon them. It is a law. It is there in every scripture that is worthy of being called scripture. From the Holy Bible to the Holy Quran to the Bhagavad Gita to the Shustras, it is there. Law of retribution, law of karma. Do the right thing, especially if you're in a position of leadership. So Wahab is going to get blessings despite the few people who did the wrong thing. They'll be cursing him, but he's right on track, and I hope he continues this way. Otherwise, my dear, it could be really catastrophic. Luckily for us, it's been very inconvenient, but it's not as if you've seen, 200 children drowned, 500 people's houses totally destroyed. God forbid this shall be our portion.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Desmond, for finding time to join us. Time not so on our side, but we appreciate this kind gesture. That was, of course, environmental. Okay. I don't know what I'm saying. Oh my goodness. Apologies for that. Mr. Desmond Macheko to me, joining us on the show, and of course giving his 2 cents on issues that have to do with the floods from last week. Well, of course, we're moving to the next segment of the show, which is brought to you courtesy of the Lagos State Government. But of course, we're not switching gears. We're still talking about the same issue: floods, rain. It's still coming. This is just July. There will be more rains this month. Can't remember the last time we had August break, but maybe we might have August break, and then it'll be back again September, October, maybe even into November. You never can say. So of course, like Mr. Desmond said, and like I said earlier, we on our own part, we need to do what needs to be done. We need to be able to not clog our drainages. It's very important. We should not be throwing sachet water into the pack, your pack of biscuits, your pack of chin chin. Should not be throwing these things into the drainages. We should keep our trash, well. So that let's do our own part, and then when we do our own part, we can as well throw all the blames at government for not doing their own part. But of course, to a large extent, the Lagos state government has been trying as much as possible, to do what needs to be done. Of course, the Lagos state government last week apologized to residents of the state for the experiences, some of the bad experiences they may have faced as a result of the intense rainfall we saw in the state. The Commissioner for Environment and Water Resources, Tokunbo Wahab, noted that the state government has put in place resilient infrastructure which can withstand the effects of flash flooding. Wahab visited, or rather advised, Lagosians in the upland areas like Agege, Alimosho, Ikeja, to be calm, noting that the government had built resilient infrastructure that would discharge stormwater into the creeks and lagoons within a few hours after the rain. He also says the ministry has strengthened its drainage enforcement activities in ensuring due diligence, concerning all drainage channels and restoring the right ways on all channels, while it continued its intense all year round clearing and cleaning of major primary and secondary drainage channels. At least I can attest to the drainage on Muri-Okwonla right here in Victoria Island, Emmanuel. That used to be every small rain, the street is already covered with water. But over the last at least this year, since the rain started, it hasn't been as waterlogged as we've known it to be. And the simple reason is that the government has found ways, to clear the drainage. Shouldn't be getting applause for this, if I'm being honest. It's just doing what needs to be done. But you on your own that live in Muri-Okwonla, why on earth are you throwing packet of chin-chin and biscuits inside drainage? And I'm using that spot, as an example of what goes on in most parts of Lagos. So some of these flood issues are actually our own fault, because the drainages are clogged, the water that is supposed to pass will not pass. And trust me, water must pass. It will find a way. If it doesn't go through the right channel, it will find a way. And that finding a way might be coming into your house and sweeping away your goods or your properties. Well, let's listen to Mr. Tokunbo Wahab. He appealed to residents to desist from the indiscriminate dumping of refuse. That's all I've been saying almost all show. In the drainages, roads, and other unauthorized places, and also ask you, Lagosians, to support government efforts by ensuring the regular clearing of drainages in front of your house to allow for free flow of water. Take a listen to him.
We are sorry for the inconveniences caused due to nature's course. It's not for failure to plan, because nature taking its full course. And we are sorry for those whose lives were disrupted. They couldn't go to work, they couldn't go to their marketplaces, they couldn't go to schools. We took stock. Let me break it down. We've taken stock. For those on the island, we had the tidal level of the lagoon was up about 2-3 hours, because the rain was about 10 hours. So we said to them, this is a matter of flash flooding for those on the island, Ikoyi, EI, and the Lekki Peninsula corridor. That within 1 hour or two, the water will recede and things will get back to normal. For the Olokomeji junction, that's approaching Third Mainland, we had a flash flood situation on the leg of it. The emergency team were on ground since around 4 a.m. and we said, look, this also give us 1 or 2 hours. And the videos showed, even at Yanoiba. So things were done the right way. But when it comes to nature, nature will take its course. What we have to do is to mitigate the impact of nature on the environment. So for Lagosians, we are sorry for what happened. We are sorry for the disruption. We are sorry for the loss of life. They were not intended, nature took its course, and then we pushed back to mitigate and allow the water flow back to the lagoons. And for those on the upland of Alimosho, Ikeja, same thing happened. We had to put in place the resilient infrastructure. And the infrastructure were able to move the water out the streets into the canal, and then they discharge them into the lagoon when necessary. Because it's a coastal state, For a coastal state that is above sea level, slightly above sea level, we are going to experience flooding like it's done all over the world. And the fact also is that global warming is real and climate change issues are real. We as a people must also learn to take ownership. People woke up daily. You saw a video yesterday, you saw a picture of a woman and her husband. They took their bin and discharged it into the drainage system. Things have changed. So for us as a state, we keep building the infrastructures to save us from the impact of climate. But are we going to have flash flooding? I'll tell you, yes. Did we provide the infrastructure to discharge the flood water, the storm water? I will tell you, yes. And that is why if you had gone back there 1 or 2 hours after, you won't see the water anymore. It receded. Did we have flash flooding? I will still say to you, yes. Are we going to be experiencing flash flooding when the rain is heavy? I will tell you, yes. But have we put in place resilient infrastructure? I will also tell you, yes. And we have the manpower on ground. Is Lagos a coastal state? Yes, abutted by the sea and then the lagoon. We have the creeks and then we have the swamps. So what you call a flash flood, when the tidal wave is high, storm water cannot discharge into the sea or the lagoon. And within 1 hour or two, when that water level comes down, it will discharge. That's why it's a flash flood. It's ponding. It's global. It's globally known as ponding. It's not permanent.
Tokumbo Wahab, Commissioner, right here in Lagos State, speaking, of course, about the issues that has, been in the front burner. Okay, Lagos, maybe this is the time now for us to hear from you. What it was like, last week during the floods. Just to also go back to, the caller that called earlier. I was actually just, putting out some of the big stories that made the rounds last week, which is something we usually do. And of course, I just added a bit of commentary to the UK elections and of course how it affects Nigeria. But that's not the topic for today. Staying on course, we're talking floods. And of course, we had Mr. Desmond Majekudumi earlier, and he talked about how we on our own, we need to do better. Government also needs to do more than what it is doing right now. But what was it like for you last week? I would love to hear. Call us 0201 277 0993 0201 277 1993 0201 277 2993 and 0201 277 3993.
Hello, Ufuoma.
Hi, good evening.
How are you?
I'm well. Welcome to the newsroom.
Yeah, this is Mr. Frank.
Welcome, Mr. Frank.
Is there anything Lagos State can do to return this environmental every Saturday of every month? Can they do it?
Unfortunately, no, they cannot.
Is there anyhow they can return those trucks that Fashola Ambude bring that and all these PSP trucks? Is there anything that they can do to return it back to the street?
I think I still see those trucks picking up trash on the street. So
are you sure you are still seeing them?
At least I still see them on my street.
Before, all those trucks used to go inside the village, inside the communities with their belts. People will be packing their loads in that buses or in those trucks. And the thing, we are no more seeing those trucks here anymore.
What area is that? What area is that?
In Alaba International here.
Okay.
Those trucks are not coming. And again, they are clearing the gutters. Their duty is it to clear the gutters and leave.
Oh dear. Sorry about that, but just to let you know that, of course, this segment of the show is brought to you by the Lagos State government. So trust me, officials of the Lagos State government are listening to you. At least we've got that feedback from Alaba International that the trucks that pick up dirt don't get there. To a large extent, we hope in the coming days we will get that sorted out if that is the case. Hello, good evening. Welcome to the newsroom.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Emeka. I'm calling from GRA Abijo here in Ibeju.
Welcome.
Oh, thank you. We do mention about people trashing debt all over. And just like the last person said, the company that's supposed to be picking debt on our area. Since November last year, they have not been here, and we used to pay. The company name is it Green Cleaners or so. We've been calling them. So in this situation, how do you expect the people that lives in that community
to be able to put out their trash?
To trash it. At the end of the day, you will see that there's no way people will not dump the waste.
On the roadside.
On the road and all that, and at the end of the day, the water will eventually push it into the canal. So it's another thing that the state needs to work on.
Okay.
When you approach the local government or the local council around, they will tell you that those people are contractors under Lagos State, that they cannot do
anything about it.
But when they want to enforce you to register with them, those people will use those same council people to come and force you to register under that company. But when things is not working out, they will tell you they are private companies and there's nothing they can do about it.
Okay, good feedback. Like I did say, this, of course, will be looked into by the relevant authorities. Thank you very much. And that does look like the last call we will have, because time is not so on our side. Lagos, it's been great having this conversation. It's a conversation that we will not stop having, but I would believe that the biggest takeaway from this conversation on floods and the rainfall from last week is, let's do what is right. Let's at least do our own part and throw our trash where it needs to be thrown. For those who have complained about the contractors not coming their way, hopefully we will have the Lagos State government look into those situations. So on behalf of my producers, Precious Nana Okon and Emmanuel Onwoka, thank you very much for joining us on the newsroom today. Remember, we've got a very wonderful digital item out there about, of course, Super Eagles and people not identifying, and people who identified and got money. Go and watch on YouTube.
More news and information coming up. We'll be back in a moment.
Just when I thought that I would...
99.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens. 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.